I texted him, but oh well. Hello there, everybody. David Bianco with you here at the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Let's make sure everything's working. Got my co-pilot here, Brad.
Hello.
Brad. And we have Scott from the Pressing Matters with us, joining us all the way from Florida.
Thank you
Welcome,
for having me.
Scott. Oh, great to have you. How are things in Florida? Is it warm?
Yes, it's warm and beautiful. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little under the weather today, so besides that, everything's okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, great. Glad to hear that. Let's we're just making sure we're live here. PF5, F5. Sorry. There we go.
There it is. Okay.
Well, we're going to be doing something unique here, I think, a bit, and that is taking on 3 different albums of one artist with a vinyl shootout. Now, this is something that we started talking about months ago, Brad and I, and we realized we had 3 albums that we wanted involved in this process. And so in doing that, we realized, well, we need someone else. And Scott, we really enjoy the work you do on your channel. You're very clear and objective in all the effort you make. So you're a perfect candidate. Thanks for taking the time. We shared literally vinyl between us as we needed to, and certain people had certain vinyl available. So yeah, it's great. So before we get started, I have a special guest that's going to join us. He's a friend of mine who I got to meet through some mutual friends in the vinyl community. And he also was a guest, one of my early guests when my channel first started and had 6 subscribers or something, you know. But as soon as he got on, it went to 7. So it's a great thing. Mr. Tony Shore, thank you.
Hello. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Hi, Tony.
Great. Hey, Tony. So I've got my friend Brad here who has been co-piloting with me, and Scott is in Florida, and we're going to be doing these shootouts. But the reason I asked Tony up specifically is his background. He's been in the industry, and he was involved in some early things. And I think it was Freddie Puro that you knew, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah. I worked briefly for Warner staff producer Freddie Puro. I worked for a little label of his and at Mama Joe's studio there in one of the bungalows just outside the studio. And yeah, I was in LA I moved there in 88 and was there for about 6 years. And that's where I first met Rick and Dan Wooding, who was doing some work and wrote a book about Rick Wakeman.
So Rick Wakeman, he's speaking of. So the reason he's on here is that Tony knows Rick and John Anderson, and has some stories he's told and has to tell. But but Freddie, I know Freddie was involved in Ambrosia's first releases, which were Prague. We were just looking at the credits on him producing those ones on 20th Century Fox.
Yep.
And hello to everybody in the Peanut Gallery. I'm not probably going to take time to write in, but I thank you for being here. And so, you know, I just asked Tony, hey, if you come up for a few minutes, maybe share a few stories, tell me what the guys are doing these days, and bring us up to speed on a couple of the band members.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, David. This is fun. You said it's about Yes, and I'm like, you bet. Yeah, my favorite band of all time. I grew up loving the band, and John's my favorite vocalist. And it's funny because I ended up getting to meet them and numerous times, and mainly through a friend of mine, Nick Cachopo, who helped Rick promote a bunch of Rick Wakeman shows and was friends with Dan Wooding. And I was doing radio promotions in LA at the time and did some work with Freddie Puro. And so I was fortunate enough to help meet Rick at that time. And through that and through Nick, it was when they were doing the Yes Years box set. They were going to do that, the first CD box set for Yes. And Nick and I, the label Atlantic in LA at their LA headquarters, they wanted some fan input. So they brought Nick and I into the offices, and the band was there, and said, as a fan, what would you want to see on this box set? What rarities are out there that you guys know about? And Nick had a lot of great input because he had been into him since the 70s. I was a late bloomer. I'm not quite as old as Nick, but I I got into Yes around 79, the In the Round tour, and I heard Roundabout on the radio, and then just went back and got everything. And so I was a late bloomer. I'm one of the few that I love 90125. It's one of my favorite albums. And so when they said, what do you want to see on this Yes box set? I was like, I want to see the outtakes from, 90125, and I want to see the a cappella version of Leave It. I begged them to put it on there because it wasn't available on CD anywhere. And I love that. It did not make it on. That was my main push, being there at the meeting, and you can tell what impact I had, how much they cared about what I had to say. But it was fun hanging out, meeting in the halls, Chris Squire and John. That was awesome. They were there, so that was a lot of fun. And then when they did the Union tour, I got to go to the Forum and hang out in the catacombs underneath the Forum, in the green room where the band's just hanging out. I was there for like an hour and a half before the show, hanging out with the band because Nick got me in, and I'd met Rick through Dan Wooding. So that's kind of my into the band. But it's pretty amazing. Sat there and had a 30-minute conversation with John, who at that time, I was total fanboy, but I asked him about, his lyrics are very spiritual. So I asked him about that aspect of it. We had about a 30-minute conversation about spirituality and religion and what he believed and didn't believe. And I thought that was fascinating. So I've loved the band my entire life, pretty much since the late 70s anyway.
Yeah, great. You shared with me a story about Rick that had to do with an artist that has been my probably number one artist for years, Michael W. Smith. Oh, and being at an event. Can you share that story real quick?
Yeah, when I was working with Rick, he was doing a piano tour of the U.S., and I know Nick and some other guys brought him out to California. I was working I'd moved to Nashville after 6 years in L.A. I moved to Nashville to do radio promotions, and I was working for a big gospel label at the time. I was Amy Grant's radio promoter for about 3.5 years. And at that time, Rick came in and was thinking about doing a record, and I hooked him up. I set up a meeting. Nick was kind of trying to help manage him at that time, and in the States anyway. And we set up a meeting with the label. He was not impressed with the executives in the Christian music industry. That's quite a story. But I promoted a show of his in Franklin, Tennessee. He played a cathedral, and he had Steinway bring him in a piano, and they brought in I think they flew in a tuner from Europe. Rick is somehow sponsored by Steinway. Imagine, it's one thing for Fender to give an artist a guitar to play on stage for free. But Rick comes in, and he didn't like the piano they had, and Steinway brought in a piano and tuners, and he set up to play. Rick is the nicest, most humble guy, though. He's just fantastic, and I've gotten to know him over the years. But what was funny is, because it's in Nashville and there's all these gospel artists, and he's playing this big popular church in Franklin where Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, everybody goes there, right? And Vince Gill and all these people. But I'm helping put on this show, and I brought Rick in to do this show. And I'm standing there at the back. He'd done sound check. People are starting to come in, and he's backstage. I'm in the front greeting some people and friends. And somebody comes up to me, "Hey, Michael W. Smith is here, and he wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay," because I hadn't worked directly with Michael. I worked with Amy, though, so I'd met him a few times. And I go over, and Michael's standing in the back, and I go, "What's up, Michael? Great to see you, Tony Shore." And he goes, "Yeah, I know who you are. Here's the deal. I'm a huge Rick Wakeman fan. Do you think he would autograph? I could get his autograph and a picture with him." So Michael W. Smith asked me for to get Rick Wakeman's autograph, and he was like a total fanboy. And it was so funny. And I go, "Michael, I'm sure Rick would love to autograph a record for you." And I don't believe, when I went back to talk to Rick about it, he goes, "The name sounds kind of familiar." He didn't really know Michael W. Smith. And I go, "Well, he's selling a lot of records right now, but and he's a nice guy too. Michael's a nice, pretty humble guy. I don't think anybody is as humble or as nice as Rick Wakeman. One of the nicest artists I've ever worked with. And I've worked with a few artists over the years doing promotions and stuff. The two nicest artists I've ever met and worked with, and I've met a lot of them and worked with a lot of them, are Amy Grant and Rick Wakeman. They're real, they're genuine, they're who they are, and funny. Oh my God, Rick Wakeman is the funniest person. And it was just him telling stories and playing songs on the piano. I don't know if any of you guys, I think he put out the piano album off that tour and a couple others, but that was great because he would tell the hilarious stories, and really people were there. I think people enjoyed the stories as much as his versions. You know, he played his arrangement of Cat Stevens' Morning is Broken, and would tell the story about working with Cat Stevens on it. And he's great. I mean, he's just a great guy. But the funniest thing is Michael W. Smith asking for Rick Wakeman's autograph. I got a kick out of that. Yeah. And he was just like a fanboy. Oh, I hope it's not, if it's putting him out or if he can't, I'd love to meet him and get his autograph. And I think he had, I can't remember if it was Journey to the Center of the Earth or Fragile. He had one of the records there and he wanted Rick to autograph it.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Smitty. That's
he's a nice guy too.
He's a fan. Yeah, he's a fan. And so I know John's been doing some touring. Can you catch us up on him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I haven't talked to John in a while, but I keep in touch via other people. My friend Nick is a really good friend of John's, and some other musicians that are constantly talking to John. And I try to stay on top of it, but John is, he's all over the place. He's, you probably already know he's doing the tour again with the Band Geeks, and that's coming up. I think doesn't that launch in like a week or two, I think. And he is coming here. I live in the Twin Cities area, and he's coming here, and I've got it lined up to meet him before the show and hopefully go to sound check. But because I haven't talked to him since the it's a couple tours ago, probably.
Okay.
Oh no, I did see him with the School of Rock tour. The School of Rock tour, I went in Milwaukee, and that's the last time I talked to him.
That's right. Yeah. You said that.
Yeah. 1,000 Hands before that, I took my son, who's now 25, but my son and I went to see 1,000 Hands and got to hang out with John. That was so much fun. My son had never met him, and my middle daughter had met him another tour he came through. But Rick is great because every time Rick is in the States and comes anywhere near the Midwest, he'll get together with me like before the show. And the funniest story is he, when Yes was touring, and I forget, it was like, I believe it was Dream Theater opened, or I forget who opened. It was a crazy. The Yes usually doesn't have a double bill, but they played the Target Center. And before the show, I went to meet Rick at his hotel that afternoon, and he goes, "Meet me for a spot of tea," right? And whatever, English. He's going to have a spot of tea. And then I get there and we're in the restaurant and they show me to his table. He's already sitting down and he's like, "Oh, good to see you. Have you talked to Nick lately?" "Yeah." And then he goes, "Thanks for meeting me for a spot of tea." And then the waitress comes over and he goes, "I'll have a coffee and bring me a pot." And I'm like, okay, he's not ordering tea, he's ordering coffee. He sat there while we talked and drank. And I go, "Well, I'll probably just have some coffee so you can just bring the one pot." And he goes, "No, that's for me." So I ordered a cup of coffee and he sat there and drank a pot of coffee while we talked. And he did most of the talking though. So
I can imagine.
For a spot of tea for him is an entire pot of coffee. Yeah. I guess maybe when in Rome, I don't know if he is a big tea drinker. He doesn't like our tea maybe and just drinks coffee, but I got a kick out of that. And he drank the whole pot. So I'm like, well, he'll be on fire tonight in about an hour when he takes the stage.
Well, you got to have some energy to do that. If you're going to play songs to kill off 6 wives at one time, you got to get moving.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to mention before I let you go, Tony, is John and the album 3 Ships. Oh. You will see this album for $5 in a bin or whatever. Grab it. It is an unbelievable album. It has some characteristics of Christmas and non-Christmas music, but it is amazing. And every time I see one, I buy one. I buy it anywhere I find it and give it away to people.
I do the same.
So darn good. So if
It's my favorite Christmas album.
You've never heard Three Ships by John Anderson, you absolutely have to get it.
I have right behind me on that record rack right there. That's the top couple rows are my Yes and Yes related. And I have three. I have a US promo copy, and I have a Japanese pressing, and I have the a regular OG pressing, and then I have the original Japanese CD because it wasn't on CD for a long time, and then it came out in Japan, so I still have that. But
Sure.
that's one of my favorite records. I have it on cassette. Even I just buy any copy I see of it. I'm a hardcore. I'm not that way about many artists, but yes, I'm a completist. So yeah.
Well, that's why I thought of you, of course, when we were putting this together. I wanted to reach out to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to jump on and just give us some inside info and, just some fun stories. And hopefully you can stick around and watch us and see what we think about these records.
Well, Scott, what is you're a big Yes fan. Obviously, you're both Yes fans. You guys, Scott, what do you do? The Pressing Matters. What's that?
The Pressing Matters focuses on audiophile reissues, mainly YouTube channel that delves into mostly pressing variations. So this is a perfect job for me.
What's the best pressing of Fragile? I have the Mophie box pressing, and I think all of them. What's the best pressing?
You'll have to wait.
Oh, you're going to give it away. Yeah. I mean,
that's what this is about. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. But here's the funny part. You actually picked the record that he reviewed, because we reviewed the Yes album, Brad, and I did Close to the Edge. Yep. So you asked the right person the right question. Your time
those are the three biggies. So I'm going to listen, and I have Japanese pressings of all three, and I have OGs of all three, and I have Mophies of the Fragile and the Close to the Edge. Is there a Mophie version of the Yes album?
Not on vinyl. On
yeah,
CD.
Not on vinyl.
CD.
Yeah, I have that on CD. Yeah, not on vinyl. Okay, well, I'll let you guys go.
Stay tuned, because you're going to get some surprises then.
Okay, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to interrupt your show or take over or anything.
Perfect timing.
You like my Yeti? You guys like the Yeti?
Oh, wow. Yes, I do.
I found the sticker I toured the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after Yes played there, and they had the Yes stickers. So I bought one and put it on I've been saving it for a while. And so I said, that'll look great. So, all right. I can't wait to see which pressing you guys think is best. And then I'll post a comment as to why you're probably wrong and I'm right. I have no idea. I just, yeah. All right.
Well, I can tell you, we've worked many hours to get to the conclusion we did. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. I'll let you guys go, and I'll watch. All right.
Stay tuned.
Take care. Bye. All right. That's a little surprise, Scott. Sorry, I didn't let you know that was happening, but I honestly wasn't sure if he'd be able to join, so I wanted to. But yeah, Tony's a great fan of Yes. So let me get our little presentation started here, and hope that technically things start to work for a change. All right.
Yeah, I think people are going to be surprised if they're expecting a definitive best, because it doesn't work that way.
Not in this case, it doesn't.
Well, why would you say that, Scott? I don't understand.
This pressing wipes the floor with every other.
Yeah, that's all you need to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
Screens. There we go. Screens to share. And I'm gonna.
Sorry, I stepped away. I have to get some air conditioning going here.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I got it.
All right.
First world problems.
Yes. Okay, so the Yes Vinyl Shootout. I don't know where they got the title of the band. Was it from this movie? Okay, so without any further ado, what we're trying to do is compare various pressings of titles to understand the comparative sound difference between them. And so my channel and Scott's, his Pressing Matters, are really here to help inform you toward getting the best pressings for your hard-earned cash. And again, thanks to Brad for being here and inspiring me to do this live duo shootout format and making it a reality, and then bringing on Scott here for this triumvirate, so to speak, of effort. And so without any further ado, we're going to start with the viewer's equipment. Just in case you were curious, Brad's going to go through the equipment that he has. So hang on one second. I'm going to stop sharing that. Okay. Are you watching? No, not yet. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So good. So Brad, you want to go ahead and speak to your equipment?
Sure. Yeah. So, I got a VPI Classic turntable. I've had it a few years with the Classic 3-tone arm. I really like what VPI does. It's been just a workhorse, and I'll be sticking with that for as long as I possibly can. And then I actually upgraded last year the cartridge to the Ordifon 2M Black, the LVB 250. It's a moving magnet. It's pretty much the top of the line of the Ordifon series. It goes into a Parasound Z-Phono XRM phono preamp, then onto a Schiit Freya S preamplifier, then onto a Parasound New Classic 2125 version 2.
Let me share that again.
And then out to my speakers are Tecton Designs Enzo XLs, which I've had for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. I really like them. I'm getting a little bit of upgrade-itis. I think everybody feels that from time to time, but probably will end up going up the Tecton line is my guess, because I really like what Eric Alexander does there in Utah. And I think there's one more. Let's see. Yeah. Subwoofer, the SVS SB 2000 Pro, which I use mainly because the Enzo XLs don't go down to 20 hertz. I think they're about 35 or so. So kind of helps fill in the gaps with that low bass. And then I use Blue Jean cables, a balanced XLR throughout where I can. So that's my system. I think, let's see, what do we go to next? Okay. So I'm going to start. I think we're going to go in chronological order. So the Yes album was the first one of these 3 to come out that we're going to be comparing. It came out in February 1971. So just to walk you through the different contenders, if you will. So I have a Canada repress that was mastered by George Graves. The lacquer was cut by Neil Carter. There's also sort of a unique US SRC pressing. No idea who mastered it. There's no initials in the dead wax, so I just call that kind of a generic US pressing from the mid 70s. And then if we go on to the next,
I'm trying.
Yeah, there we go. Then getting to a US first pressing. This is a Monarch. This was the George Piros pressing. So I think everybody in the VC knows who George Piros is. You look for that classic ATGP and the dead wax. That's on both sides on this copy, and this was done at Monarch. Interestingly, also have a U.S. reissue, also done at Monarch, but was mastered by Dennis King. So that one has ATDK and the dead wax. So same pressing plant, but different mastering engineers, and there was a difference. We'll get to in a minute, and then I think there's one more slide that has the final 2 contenders. So that would be the UK OG Plum. Again, no idea who mastered that, but you can see that classic UK Plum label there on the left, and then finally the newest version, which is the 2023 anniversary reissue. If you look in very good liner notes in that version, by the way, I don't know if anybody on here got that, but it's kind of in a nice box, and you open it up, and there's, I think, 3 CDs and a Blu-ray in there. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But that one was mastered by Sean McGee at Abbey Road. Did not say half speed mastered, although I know a lot of what he does is half speed mastered, but it didn't say that, so it may or may not be. But interestingly, if you look in the dead wax, there's that classic BG there. So, and the lacquer was cut by Bernie Grunman. So, yeah, that's the contenders.
And just to be clear, BG is Bernie Grunman, not the Bee Gees. I just want everybody to realize that.
Yeah, good to clarify. Yeah. I mean, yes, and the Bee Gees are often mentioned in the same conversation. So, you know. And now, the elephant in the room, I do not have the Friday Music 2x45. So that came out in 2015, mastered by Joe Rigoso, and cut by Ron McMaster. If you look on the Hoffman forums, et cetera, it's generally thought pretty highly of. Again, apologies, I don't have it. I thought about getting it until I heard about the AP Atlantic 75 that's coming out, which everybody knows those are 2x45 as well, and figured I would rather wait on that. Plus the fact that the last time I checked, that Friday Music goes for around $300. So I didn't feel compelled to go for that. So
okay, that's it. Now you start giving your feedback. Oh, let me get Scott out of there. I'm not going to do him.
Okay. All right. So I'll kind of start with a little bit of background. I think if you're a Yes fan, you probably know a lot of this, but for sort of casual fans, the Yes album was actually the third album that they came out with. And this was the first one with Steve Howe, who joined, and was actually the last album with Tony Kaye until he rejoined for 90125 a number of years later. It was released in February 1971 and recorded at Advision Studios there in London. Of the three classic Yes albums we're going to discuss, this one was recorded on 16-track tape. It was the first one that they did. And so I think they moved on to more tracks with or at least that capability with Fragile and Close to the Edge. So this one, for me, when I kind of compare the three, it's a little bit more raw, maybe, because obviously they couldn't do as many overdubs and that sort of thing. And it kind of has that, not really as layered maybe as some of the later albums, but it's still a very rich and complex recording in its own right, when you compare to Fragile and Close to the Edge. Just overall, obviously, the musicianship here is off the charts. I mean, I think if you know Yes, these guys are incredible musicians. And really, that addition of Steve Howe made all the difference, I think. I mean, his technical playing, his ability to his songwriting ability, his arranging ability just took them to the next level. So just a word on Shootout methodology. So I know this album very, very well. I've been a Yes fan for a long time. And so I knew which songs I wanted to use for the Shootout. So I picked Yours Is No Disgrace and classic Starship Troopers. But really wanted to compare a couple different parts. If you know Starship Troopers, it's kind of three different parts. I picked a part in the beginning called Life Seeker that really was kind of John Anderson's baby. And also the middle section called Disillusion, which was really more Chris Squire's doing. And really a great test bed for vocal imaging and separation. So I really wanted to compare these with that. This was a 4-person review. So if you've watched our previous videos that we've done together, you know that I do these typically with my family, with my wife and my 2 kids. And what we do is they're blinded to which pressing is being played. Obviously, I know because I'm changing them around, but they don't know. So it's unbiased in that way. And so typically what I'll do is play like a minute and a half into each song. Through the first verse and kind of chorus, and then kind of cut it off and switch back and forth. So just to give you kind of the methodology, all of these were volume matched. which it turns out was very important, as you'll see. We decided to sort of do it in a tournament bracket kind of format. So we started out in the initial rounds. There were two clear losers that I'm really not going to talk about too much, that were really quickly eliminated. So those to me would be like the bubble round in the NCAA tournament. They were kind of eliminated early. And so really it was a 4-horse race in the end. So in the first round, we had the UK Original versus the US George Piros Master. And then the second round was the Dennis King Master versus the 2023 Bernie Grundman Cup. And then we picked the winner from those two rounds, and then those went head to head in the final round. So in terms of results, overall, 3 of those were very close. But there were some key differences, and we were actually divided on our opinions. If you watched our previous videos, we were all, and it was unanimous, our pick for the winner. Not the case here, and I think this will be a recurring theme, I think, based on kind of talking to these guys before we kind of started. There may not be a clear winner for each of these, as you'll see. So in round 1, which was the UK Plum versus the US Original George Piros, we were actually pretty divided. My wife and my daughter liked the US Original George Piros, while my son and I preferred the UK Original. So in the end, as we kind of talked about it, we decided to move the UK Original forward to the final round. Just in kind of talking and comparing, they sort of capitulated and were like, yeah, we can kind of see why you think it was a little bit better. But again, it was better for certain things, but not for other things. And that's kind of what we'll talk about in a minute. And then in round 2, the Dennis King versus the 2023 Bernie Grundman, it was very clear and unanimous. The 2023 Bernie Grundman was the winner, no doubt about it. So the finals was the UK Original versus the 23 Bernie Grundman. So let me just give you kind of our thoughts on each one of those as we, kind of compared and kind of some of the differences. So in the case of the UK Plum, first of all, it was cut about 2 dB hotter. So when we had to level match, that's one thing we had to take into account. It was 2 dB hotter than any of the rest of them. Very strong and detailed bass. If you like bass, the UK Original is the winner. There's no doubt about it. It's not just that it's strong, but it's detailed. You can really, you can almost hear Chris Squire's pick on that, which he always played with a pick, and really highlights, like, if you like his playing, you want to hear his skills brought to the forefront, that's the one to get. Versus, so on, let's see, so the anniversary edition, let's see. I'm sorry. I got it confused here real quick on my notes. Yeah, that's right. So the UK Original was actually my wife and I's favorite, whereas the 2023 Bernie Grundman was our kids' favorite. So that's where we were kind of divided.
Younger ears.
Yes, younger ears. And that's a key point. They can probably hear better than we can. They're younger than we are. But that's a key. That's obviously a key factor. On Yours Is No Disgrace, you can really hear on the UK Original the ghost notes on the snare. I play drums. I know David plays drums as well, so that's something I listen for. Sure. And you can really, just that detail of those ghost notes is really sticks out on that. And then the detail on the guitar as well really made the winner for me. When you get to Starship Troopers, again, for my wife and I, we liked the UK original, especially the ability to pick the voices out and kind of that harmony section of Disillusion on Starship Trooper. That was really, where you could really pick that out. And also the, Steve Howe's acoustic guitar kind of leading into that. So clear, so detailed, crisp. Everything was right where you want it to be. You can hear the pick hitting the strings. All of that detail was there. I mean, the way I kind of thought of the UK original, it's almost like the RL Led Zeppelin 2. It's the hottest cut. There's a couple of times when it borders on distortion even. And so if you like that real forward kind of aggressive presentation, the UK Plum is the way to go. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Bernie Grundman, the 2023. Again, that was both of my kids' favorite. And it could be. It's great you brought that up, David. Younger ears. So maybe those highs for them were too much. And it kind of makes sense because they had kind of said that even on the UK. They're like, gosh, it's kind of harsh at times. And, they're probably hearing things that we didn't hear. Right. Yep. So it's a good point. So the Bernie Grundman, my son actually called it dope. Youngster format. He's 26 now, but they use this vernacular. But he just said, the vocals were perfect on Yours Is No Disgrace. My daughter made the comment and said on Starship Troopers, it sounded like a concert, like it sounded live even, and natural, on that particular copy. And the soundstage, I do have to say, one thing we all agreed at the soundstage was much, much broader on the 2023 Bernie Grundman as well.
Wow. How does he do it?
Yeah, I mean, he's a master, that's for sure. So I don't want to go on too long, but that again, it's kind of a mixed bag. It really depends on, I'll just sum up the bottom line. It really depends on what you like. If you like the strong detailed bass and that more aggressive presentation, go for a UK Plum. The caveat is it's very, very hard to find a clean copy. And as you know, there's a lot of quiet parts on it.
Gotta have it. Yeah.
You want it to be quiet, and they're hard to find, and you're going to pay for something like that. Yeah.
So value-wise, might be more accessible.
Yeah, and value-wise, the 2023, the only problem is it comes in that box with the 3 CDs and the Blu-ray.
Gotcha.
Right now, I just checked Amazon earlier. It's about $75. So
that's still probably cheaper than a clean UK.
It probably is. You're right.
And you definitely know it wouldn't be played as much as one that you got from 40, 50 years ago. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Just come.
And it was a quiet vinyl. It was not a problem. It was clean. I mean, and the new one, it was well done. I mean, so even for the quiet stuff on the new one, it was fine.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, differences there. And I got to say, the one thought that I had, and I'll end with this, is that what I'm kind of hoping for is obviously the other elephant in the room is the upcoming Atlantic 75 2x45s of all 3 of these albums.
There you go.
And what I'm hoping is that just like the Crosby, Stills, Nash Couch album really solved all of the problems, at least to me. And I think, Scott, you agreed with this too. And I know, David, you did as well. All of the problems there were with previous pressings, the one step, et cetera, it just brought it all together and made it perfect and just right. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping with the Yes album version of the Atlantic 75 is it marries the two here. Is it has the power, the detail, the bass of the UK original, but with the smooth, the balance of the 2023 Bernie Grundman.
No pressure, Chad Casson. And
no.
Bernie Grundman. No pressure whatsoever.
Hoping for good things. Yes.
Yeah. Chad saw that I was doing this shootout and he's like, whoa, we got ours coming out. I said, look, I know we're going to take the winners here and we're going to put them up and have a grudge match and figure out who wins against yours because we're expecting great things, no pressure. So great review, Brad. I think it's important to understand that some of these things do get to be a bit nuanced. And there are some differences. The first thing I was thinking about when Brad said they eliminated and they grouped them was the gals had one thought and the guys had the other thought. And then it switched to the age. So there's all sorts of dynamics here. So the thing we're trying to do is provide an objective thing here to where you can make a selection. And again, if it's more accessible and cheaper and it's that great and that close to a hard to get UK, then hey, you've got a choice. And, I think that's what's important here. So, Brad, great job. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So
I'll say one last thing real quick.
Sure.
That if you can't find the UK original, the US George Piros is very good. It's right there. So again, the challenge is finding a clean copy, but
I've got one that is going to be raffled here at the end of this stream that you can win. I just picked it up in Austin at the show.
Mm-hmm.
Super clean George Piros. And I mean, even the cover is super clean, no ring wear, nothing. So somebody is going to be able to win that and I will ship it anywhere in the world. So I just want you to know he made that comment, but you're going to have a way to get one. So stay tuned for that after our reviews. So Scott, you're on.
You're on, man.
All right. Well, I asked to do Fragile. I thought that I knew this better than the other two albums, and I thought that it would be the best one for me to do. The problem was I didn't have that many copies of Fragile. Over the years, I've acquired and discarded more copies than I can remember, but I had picked up the MoFi once that I had that, and for the Shootout I picked up the 2016 Kevin Gray, and I said to David, I've got to have a UK plum at the very least for a reference to what the original sounded like, and he was able to come up with one. As a matter of fact, he came up with several things. Some Canadian pressings, an Australian pressing,
we'll go through them, Scott, here's your review. I didn't have this up. I apologize. Your hardware.
Okay.
Let's go through your hardware first.
Sure. Okay.
So, your turntable.
Yes. AJ Conti's Basis 1400 turntable. Their entry level. The Basis is made in New Hampshire. This was sold as a package with the Rega RB300 arm and originally a Benz glider. Now I have it with the Hanna ML on there. So wonderful, good, basic, does everything I needed to do and nothing more. But I've really enjoyed it for almost 20 years now. So I'm quite happy with it. A recent update was last year was the phono stage. So as I got rid of my Audio Research preamp and my Odyssey amp, I needed a phono stage, and I got the Modrite PH 9.0. It is the basic model. There are upgrades available. I have not taken advantage of them yet, but I have not much desire to because it's a superb phono stage with great flexibility. This is going to an all-tube preamp. It's from KN, the Chinese company. It is based on the Marantz 8B. It has got a KT88 tube upgrade. And I love having an all-tube amp. It's wonderful. And the small footprint and the fact that it's an integrated is great too, because I'm saving all this extra wiring and extra expense as well. I bought that used. It was a great deal, and I'm very, very happy with it. The speakers, I was using ELAC speakers. And matter of fact, I'm going to talk about this when I talk about how my methodology went. Because during the time that we first started doing this, I went through 3 different sets of speakers, actually 4. I have a dealer that's very good about letting me try things for a little while in my house, and that's how that happened. So the ELAC speakers were the debut 6.20, I think it's called. Those served me well for a while. I had them with a terrible subwoofer for a while. I took that out, had them alone, realized I needed more bass response. And I finally decided on a speaker, and I purchased it just last week. It's a System Audio Pandion speaker that you see on the right. It's from a little known company from Denmark, and they sound magnificent. I am so thrilled with them. And I had to do all the evaluations completely over again on the new speaker. So one thing I can say about all this is subjective reviews like we're doing here, really you have to kind of take with a grain of salt. They can give you a guidepost of how things are going, but unless you know the reviewer's system and may be familiar with the type of components they have, their tastes and priorities, their room, there's so many variables that pressings that sounded good on the ELACs suddenly did not sound as good on the System Audio and vice versa. So it just drove home the fact that these type of evaluations, beware if anyone says this pressing murders everything else, because it's probably not true and a bit of hyperbole. So I like to point out how they differ and then suggest how the pressing might appeal to a certain listener. And that's kind of how I go with my reviews. So that's it for the equipment.
You got the speaker cable, sound string,
sound string, speaker cables.
Yep. Yeah. And interconnects.
Interconnects are Heron Audio.
Okay.
Yeah. And tributaries. I have tributaries interconnect in there too. So
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, let's see what records are on the docket next. Hang on.
Okay.
Let me pull that up real quick, and we'll go through them. Here we go. PowerPoint does not like me today. Okay.
As I mentioned earlier in excuse me, in the broadcast, I've been ill for a couple days. I'm a little short of breath, so I'm going to try to abbreviate my findings to the essentials.
Yeah, let me, since I've got it up on the screen, Scott, just say that to help your voice out here, you're doing the Mobile Fidelity one step, which is a 2x45 as one of the fragiles, a 2016 Rhino from Kevin Gray, a UK first pressing Plum,
right,
and an Acoustech 2006 by Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman.
That's right.
Okay, great.
That's right.
All right.
Those were the 4 that were narrowed down from 8. I eliminated 4 for different reasons. The Australian pressing sounded like it was from a very poor dub of a copy tape. It just sounded so distant and muddy and grainy. I couldn't believe it was even released. And it wasn't really the pressing, it was just the source. It was obvious it was the source. A Canadian pressing was not bad at all. It was unremarkable. I didn't think it needed to be included in the final running. And it wasn't in the best shape, even after cleaning. There was some continual groove noise in the pressing that kind of eliminated it for me. So to make it simpler, excuse me, I eliminated that. There were 2 UK pressings. One was a Plum, one was a second pressing. Second pressing was a little bit cleaner, but I went with the UK Plum, especially after I got a degritter in the house. That was the last thing. That was the last thing about the methodology. After I got the System Audio Pandion speakers, my dealer brought over a degritter, and I was like, oh, I got to clean all these. I got to clean all these Yes albums and hear them all again. Well, it really is amazing. Now I really want one, but yeah. The Plum label rose up in quality with that cleaning. You're going to get back a beautiful.
Thank you for cleaning that for me, my friend.
Nice.
It's beautiful. Also the AP. Okay, so where was I? So we're keeping the Plum label. We don't know the mastering engineer. The AP, Analog Productions, acoustic mastering, Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman. Silver label pressing. The Rhino 2016 by Kevin Gray at Coherent. And the MoFi One Step by Craig Wunderlich. All right, so let's start with, sorry, I have to rely on notes a little bit. I'm a bit foggy. The overall, I'm going to give you the overall character of each of these 4 pressings. The UK Plum, once it was cleaned up, it was fabulous. It really is the kind of the gold standard. It's very lively though. It's fresh, lively, and energetic. It really like leaps off the speakers.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, as you were saying about your UK Plum, I was like, that's the same thing. And pretty much your comments almost echo mine. Wonderful presence and immediacy. All up here, it's all like coming at you, and everything that is there on that tape is there to be heard. So many of the other pressings kind of mask a little bit of this and that, and you really get the feeling when you're listening to the UK Plum that it's all there. It's obviously the freshest. It was made right after the tape was finished, so in the same country. So with the UK Plum, you're getting a very bold, lively presentation that you hear every detail and nuance. The issue is, and there's always an issue with all of these, it's lacking deep bass. It's lacking.
Interesting.
Yeah, it has bass, and it's wonderful to follow the bass. It's so easy to follow each note in those rapid successions, and it doesn't matter what cut. I did kind of focus on Roundabout and Heart of the Sunrise, but I listened to everything on all of these. Probably as far as following the bass, the UK Plum is the easiest. It just, compared to some of the other ones that try to bring out the bass more, it doesn't feel like it has the weight of some of the other pressings, but it does everything pretty damn well. And if you love a forward detailed presentation that is like jumping out of the speakers, you would love the UK pressing. Let me see if there's anything I didn't missed about that. When everything's going full tilt, like in Roundabout, the percussion section, where there's thundering bass, tons of percussion, organ, multi-layered vocals, bass, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, everything is going full tilt. The sound does harden a little bit. It's not able to unravel everything. And, you know, I don't think it's the cartridge. I don't think it's the tape. I think it's the pressing. That particular pressing just doesn't have the finesse to unravel some of the more complex sections with the well, I would say like with the finesse that some of the other ones can. So you do get a sense of it's a little too much at some points, just like your kids felt probably. Traditionally, I'm very sensitive to that high-end stuff, and I didn't think I would like the UK Plum, but it's just on the border of acceptable for me, and the liveliness and energy and power is just so much fun that I definitely consider it in the running. Let me see what else here. Okay, yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, it seems like that's the price to pay for the excellent life and clarity and so forth. Moving on to the AP, which was the next one to come out. So this is Analog Productions, the silver label, kind of early on, 2006. Steve Hoffman's involved with this one, and we all probably know Steve Hoffman's work from DCC. He favors a warm, lush analog sound, and that's exactly what you get with this. And that sounds good to me, and it sounds like a great goal is to have it presented that way. But coming off of the UK pressing, you're immediately struck by, okay, this sounds lush, beautiful, everything, the harsh edges are rounded off just a little bit, and depth and clarity are great. The bass is extended a bit. The surfaces are great. It's really, really a pretty listen. But is it supposed to be that pretty, you know? And you kind of scratch your head. You're like, I'm trying to hear something up above this level, and it's not really there. The air, the sparkle. In isolation, you wouldn't even know, but coming right off of that, they're like two opposites. This is the kind of pressing that I normally love. I love lush, tubey, warm pressings like this. But there's something about this that just keeps it, for me, from being on the top for me. And it's not a pressing that I don't think I would search out at this point, unless it was just thrown in my lap and it was cheap. I wouldn't pay whatever the premium price is for it. Nor would I for UK either. I tend to prefer something that's well produced, reissue, that's brand new and clean. I like that. What else can I say about the AP? It's ultimately lacking in power and drive and excitement. It's audiophile. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like polished up, and I like it to an extent, but I missed the excitement and drive of the first pressing. It was just not there. And I think that's why it's sort of fallen in estimation over the years. It's a pleasant listen, but it's lacking in some areas for sure. I'm going to go to the MoFi next, even though that was the last. So the MoFi is another kettle of fish. This is a 2x45 taken from a DSD file. It's one of the few MoFis that I absolutely love. I loved it so much that I bought 2 copies. I have one sealed. But whether I own it or not, the MoFi One Step is a different thing than the original pressing or the AP. It's bold. It's cinematic. It runs out of the gate like a rhinoceros. It's like, look at me. You know, I got power. I got dynamics. I have bass. I have clarity. I have detail. I have wonderful spatial characteristics. It's all there. The problem here is the bass. The bass is just too much. It lumbers along kind of down there. And, you know, on the ELACs, I even noticed it. And those are limited in low frequency response. On the Pandions, it's even more apparent. Now, I'm not saying it's not a fun pressing. It is. It's super fun to listen to. The way the opening chord of Roundabout comes out and the little guitar strum, it's menacing on this, the way the weight of it comes out. But then in other sections where the band's going full tilt, you're trying to follow the bass line, and it's not quite clear like it is on the original pressing. It's a little muddied, and it kind of slows down the whole presentation. Like the bass is not really moving in the same timeline as up here. It's a subtle thing, but there's no doubt it's a thrilling pressing. There are some stunning moments on it, though, and one of them is Heart of the Sunrise. Absolutely. Heart of the Sunrise was crammed onto the end of a side before, and here it's given a full side to stretch out. And what a masterpiece that is. It's a composition that's kind of, it's done in tiers. So you get a full throttle statement from the orchestra, a nice gentle part from John Anderson. His first vocals are very sweet and lovely. Then you get another statement from the full band going full tilt. And then you get another level of intensity from John, and so on. It's all there. It's all there. And John's vocal in that is the best on any of these. It's so breathtakingly clear. He's almost whispering it at the beginning when he says, love comes to you, then after. Or sharp distance, you know, all those little utterances at the beginning. He's just placed right there. The placement in the soundstage and the detail of the spatial placement of everything is uncanny on that track. That track, to me, is worth it for the one-step pressing. It's a showpiece, stunning. Even though the bass is a little bit plummy, I would say, it's still a beautiful, beautiful listen. Really, like I said, bold, cinematic, and thrilling. Yeah, it's a beautiful pressing too. Very quiet, especially after the clean, after the degritter, it was like nothing was there, nothing. Okay, so that brings us to the dark horse in the race, Kevin Gray's 2016 black vinyl pressing. There is also a 2023, I believe, clear vinyl pressing that David sent me, taken from the same plates. So this would pretty much apply to that. The overall character is precise, dramatic, and punchy. Things really took an interesting turn when I got this. The first time I put it on, before I even had all these other pressings, I was won over. It's a common $24 pressing. You can get it on Amazon for $21. It's packaged beautifully. It's a Rhino edition. It's mastered by Kevin Gray at Coherent. And I think he's done his original mastering at Acoustic one better and given you pretty much everything you want with this record and nothing you don't. After the somewhat tame AP, the energy was back. That energy and life of the first pressing is there on the Kevin Gray. It matches the drive of the UK pressing, and that was a welcome relief after hearing the somewhat closed in sound of the AP. The clarity was much, much better than the AP. Each part, even in the most demanding sections, is fully resolved. You can hear everybody doing their thing separately, and the vocals, say in Roundabout, in that very busy section, are very clean and clear. Even if there's several of John layered on top of each other, you feel the separation. And this is the only pressing, except for the one step, that does that really well. The bass extension is surprising, but it's different than the MoFi one step. The bass is deep, but it's anchored well. It's anchored well with the rest of the spectrum. You hear the very finest air on top all the way down through, and you hear this bass. It's easy to follow, but it's deep and authoritative. And the whole thing is locked in. It's coherent. Wonderful. It should be coherent. It's Kevin Gray's Coherent mastering, and it really does sound like that. Surprising how it takes the best of everything, all these different pressings, and puts it all together. The bass is deeper than the UK. It's tighter though. It's tighter than the AP, and it had great definition. The whole record hits hard without losing its composure. And that's really important. You want it to be kind of on the edge, but not lose it and fall into graininess or a sense of distortion. That can happen on the first pressing. And the AP tries to cover it up too much and make it a little too bland. This kind of takes the middle road, and with Kevin Gray's great equipment that he's using to do this, it's able to tread that fine line and get everything pretty much right. I was so I was so impressed with this. I really was. I mean, I wouldn't want to be without the one step, but I thought this was really an excellent job, and I couldn't believe it was like a commonly available $24.95 pressing that could
Yeah.
actually hold a candle to an original. So it, you know, the Kevin Gray manages to avoid being bright. It avoids being bright, harsh, distant, congested, bass light, bass heavy, and presents the record with an awe-inspiring drama and beauty and complexity. Even the sound effects were wonderful. You know, the sound effects where the person is running across and back across the stage, and then you hear that boom. That boom is like startling on this. And there's other things too. Oh, there's a machine sound that's kind of in is it South Side of the Sky? I think after they sing la 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 la, it sort of comes back. The music's coming back the fourth time, and it sounds like a machine coming up to you, and it's very, very effective on the Kevin Gray. I'm not going to say that Kevin Gray is the king, but it's pretty damn good.
Dollar for dollar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very encouraging to see that, you know, we have these kind of things coming out and the quality to make it, again, we're talking about accessibility. You know, these guys are running for making the best product they can. And, you know, they know what they're up against.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chad knows what he's up against when they're doing all these Atlantics. And, you know, he's been really ostensibly hitting it out of the park, but that isn't always the way it works out.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a thing of, on balance, some of these newer ones just really, like you said, keep all the right things, don't bring in all the wrong things, and on balance, just give you the best overall presentation to where everything just works.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
and I think that's really, in fact, I think a lot of what's happening. So great details, Scott, and I appreciate you muscling through it. I know you haven't been feeling well, so thanks for doing that as well. So we're off to my little world, and
Okay.
I'll start with my equipment. Very meager equipment, relatively speaking, and I'm going to be doing close to the edge, which sounds like my life. But so we're going to start. Turntable I use for this was my dual 1245. Cartridge, I have a Rigby AT540 Microline, which is an Audio Technica with what's called a rigid body on it. I also have, for a phono stage, Graham Slee Graham Amp 2 Special Edition. And for my amp, I'm currently using my stereo amp, my NAD 3140. I often have used my quad amp, which is in the shop but ready to be picked up. So I'll be moving back to that one here if all the work that was done has been effective. Speakers, I have Polk Audio RTA 11Ts. I actually have 4 of them. For this, I obviously only use 2. And my headphones are Sony MDR-V6 because I do a fair amount of headphone listening when I am doing these shootouts, because it does provide another perspective and maybe a little more precision to be able to listen to certain things. But I use speakers, of course, as well. What I'm comparing is the original US George Piros from the Richmond, Precision Richmond plant, Richmond, Indiana, which I had been to in the later 90s. It was a CD pressing plant at that point. In the 1972 UK first pressing is also one that I use. Now, they dropped the plum by then. It was back to the original or Atlantic label that we're used to. Then I acquired at the Austin Record Show a 76 Japan version that was from Warner Pioneer. It was imported through Nautilus, which was a brand that made half-speed master records in the late 70s and 80s here in the U.S., but they didn't produce this. They just imported it. Then we have the venerable 1982 Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab, MFSL Half Speed Master by Stan Ricker, and that one has been around for a long time. Came out I think it was number 18 of the records that were released from them. Then a 2012 Europe cut from Chris Bellman, who now is with Bernie Grundman mastering. And then a 2008 Friday Music by Joe Riagoso and Ron McMaster, which was also provided for this particular shootout. I want to thank Brad. He provided me 3 of these, the Mobile Fidelity and these 2 came from Brad. Thank you very much, Brad. And that was very helpful to get that because it just added more to the shootout. And of course, picking up one, adding to the list at the very end there. So let me talk a bit about these and kind of go through it, a process of elimination. First thing I have to say is let's talk about the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab one. And, Mobile Fidelity back in the day was making some pretty good product. A lot of people said that Stan Ricker, had applied this Smiley EQ a lot to records back then. And I could see where there are some releases that reflect that. This one was not one of them. And I can tell you that because there was basically very little high end on this at all. I thought that maybe my wife had covered my speakers with blankets, but I looked and double checked and said, no, there are tweeters in there and there is nothing blocking that, but I don't hear that bell very well at the beginning of And You and I, for example. This pressing is an unverified disaster. I mean, wow. I can't say enough about how bad it is. And I hate to say that because Brad here probably paid some good money for it, but I will tell you, I digitized all of these, and Brad was with me as we drove back from the Austin show, and I played him these. I think the Puros OG against this Mobile Fidelity. I also had the Friday Music one in there, and what was your impression of the Mobile Fidelity? I'll let you speak.
Yeah. What was it? What was it I said? Like, what happened at the top end?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was, it was like, I mean, literally like you put your hand over the tweeter.
Yeah. It was
gone.
And it was, my mind, I've been thinking about this and I'm like, Stan Ricker must have got a memo right before mastering this about the smiley face and being too bright, because he went the same percentage below 0 in the mids on this one. And the bass was messy and muddy, and the voices were not distinct. So that one's out of the running, I guess, so to speak. So if you have that one and you need to sell it, don't show them this review. Okay. That would be my advice.
I was going to sell it. Now I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can.
Sold it by now, you're in trouble. Yeah. So, and I, for me, that's a lot to say. But I mean, it was like, a deaf person could have figured this one out. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we have then let's go back to the Friday Music one. Ron McMaster was assisting Joe Riagoso, because God knows he needs it. And on this one was fairly balanced, but it was somewhat lackluster in a way than the better pressings. Of course not. It was better than the Mobile Fidelity, that's for sure. So you got that going for you, Joe. The vocals were pushed back quite a bit in this as I listened to it, and that's not good because the vocals here are very engaging normally. As this being a theme album, you only have really one side of one song and then 2 on the other. It's a very engaging vocal set. And the imaging was, it was very limited in scope from what I could hear. But it was a clean pressing. It certainly didn't have all of the top attributes of the winners, but it was very listenable. And usually when it's Friday music, I'm usually out right out of the gate, pretty much, unless Joe has someone helping him like Kevin Gray. But this one was a little better than I expected, but not any necessarily thing, to write home about. The UK pressing, and it's the first pressing, the brightness there was a tad more than the best, a tad less than the best versions. And it seemed to have a more of a fresh sound to it, more open and engaging. There was sometimes where there was slight muffling in certain sections, but it was as I listened to it more, it wasn't as obvious to me. But the whole presentation, again, on this had a little bit of a pushback compared to the winner, but it definitely was stronger than the previous ones that I have mentioned. And I'll be going into a ranking here soon as well. Now, the Japanese pressing, or let me skip over to the George Piro, the OG pressing. This is a very impressive pressing. I mean, this record I bought when it came out, and I put a thing on it called Soundguard back in the 70s by Ball Corporation, which was supposed to protect your records and make them sound better. And they certainly protected this record, because I will tell you, I played this album hundreds and hundreds of times, and that's not an exaggeration. And I did it in a relatively short period of time, within a few months. I mean, I was into this record like up the wazoo. And I remember that very well. And so when I listened to this, I was surprised how good it still sounded. I mean, the vinyl was very quiet. It didn't really have any ticks and pops. I even digitized it, which I did to these others as well, and played it for Brad in the car. And it was like clean machine. And it was a really good sounding pressing. I mean, really. So, I mean, this is one of those, you can find it for a clean one for 10 or 20 bucks. It's a good value. There's no doubt about that. The variable with these used ones, of course, is you don't know how much it's been played. So you don't necessarily know what you're in for. Mine, I put the Soundguard on, and I'm positive it helped protect it over all these years. But the Pyros is magnificent. I picked up this 76 Japanese pressing that was the Nautilus import, and it too was very good. It was much like the Pyros, but the difference was, I think it was a tad over bright in a couple places, and the bass wasn't quite as strong as the Pyros, which is not unusual with Japanese pressing. So I'd say that that's pretty normal overall. So other than the MoFi, these all were acceptable, and they're moving up the line here in terms of better and better and better, with, again, the US OG being very strong. Of course, the UK was very good, as was the Japanese. But we come to the dark horse, the 2016 Chris Bellman. And this record, when you compared it and A-B'd it, and we did it again today, Brad and I did, and we're switching back and forth and the track is within 3 to 5 seconds of tracking the same exact lines of the song. The full bodiness of this record was unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of like you were talking there, Scott, about your experience with the Kevin Gray on the Fragile. It's just like it gets everything right. I mean, it just, the things that are high, you can hear very clearly without thinking they're too high. And the voices you can pick out because they're there and standing out and not muddled into the mid-range. And then the bass rips up the bass chords and the magic of Chris Squire, just like, butter, like butter, like butter, they say,
Yeah.
And so, for me, this really had all of the right ingredients, the right match of blend of sounds, and just, one pressing or another pushed a bit here or there a bit. And I think what's happening here, because now I'm starting to think like we're getting the feedback from you, and we got the feed. It's kind of like, yeah, these guys are taking some of the rough edges and smoothing them out and providing us, this really digestible thing at a reasonable price, that's available in the market. Well, you saw, I sent you those two, right? The Kevin Grays and you clear in the black, and they were what, $24-$25. I bought them. Stickers were probably still on. I think they were sealed when I sent them to you. So right. I read such good things about them, but I can tell you, it's magical. It really is magical. So I'm going to show you my my rating system of what I came up with, and I think I'd be better at doing this screen stuff by now, but oh well. Let me get PowerPoint's not my friend today. I think I'm going to blame it on PowerPoint and be done with it. So, okay, there we go. Okay, so here's what I've got. So the Bellman ranked number 1. Quiet vinyl was 9, bass 9.5, mid 9.5, treble 9.5, imaging 9.5, voices 9.5.
Wow.
9.42. I mean, it was magnificent. The USOG was quiet. The quiet vinyl there was really strong. I'm not usually, the OGs for me are a little noisier. This one was great. The bass was strong. The mids weren't quite as good as the Bellman. The treble was just a little less. It was, in places, it was more present, but it wasn't more precise. And it got to be a bit, I'll say, annoying, or be almost a bit too much. But the imaging and the voices were really great on the USOG. So a 9.08. So, both of these top 2 records are under $30, whether you're buying used or whether you're buying new. I don't know. The Bellman, I think, is obviously not a new release now. It might be hard to find. I'm sure there's some on Discogs. But so those two really, shine, no doubt. Then we get into a tie between the Japanese and the UK OG. And part of that is the UK OG seemed a little noisier. The vinyl wasn't as quiet. So that affected the scoring. So they both ended up at 8.75. And I'll share with you a ranking that takes the vinyl quietness out so you can see how it would have done without that. Friday Music ranked 5th with an 8.08. And then MoFi really bringing up the basement here with a 6.83, and I was very generous. So
that was so bad.
I'm shocked.
It's so bad. Brad, it's his record. He says it's so bad. So here's what the ratings are without using the vinyl quietness in the ranking. So even though the column shows it's not in the ranking. So again, everything ranks the same, except you'll see the UK flips up to number 3 there at 8.9 versus 8.7. So if you take the vinyl aspect out of it and just listen to the sound, it's the UK is stronger than the Japanese. But, these records are so needing of quiet passages. There's places where you just can't ignore, that fact, right? Mm-hmm. You just can't ignore it. So that's great. Wow, time flies by. I really appreciate you guys doing this. So we're into the free giveaway time. So there were a couple of options of how we were going to do this. I'm going to share with Brad one of the ideas I had. Read that there, Brad.
Okay.
Not out loud, but to yourself.
Yeah.
And we're gonna pick one of 2 methods to do this. So get your typing fingers ready, folks, in the peanut gallery. And the first one that we see to come across will be the winner. Now we're looking on StreamYard. We're watching comments there as opposed to on YouTube. So we're watching them as they're coming to StreamYard directly first. So whoever we see there that gets the correct answer.
Yeah,
think that's a good one.
Yeah.
So should we ask which band member, or what do you think? Is that would it be the better?
Or which album? Isn't that
okay.
the question?
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I love it. So we have come to this. So this is all you're going to need to type is the name of the album. It'll be one of these 3, Close to the Edge or Fragile or the Yes album. And by the way, the Yes album, type out the Yes album, not just yes, because that's cheating a bit. But so I'm going to read this, and what I want you to tell me is which of the three albums do you think this event relates to? At which album did this problem occur for the band? The arrangements that Yes had started to assemble were so complex that they were forgotten by the time the next day's session began, and this caused the band to record each rehearsal for future reference. Bruford devised the album's title to reflect the state of the band at the time. You guys are just typing whatever, I can tell here.
Yeah. We shouldn't have made it multiple choice, right?
Yeah, well. Get in your votes. Which of these three albums is? Come on, Novice Nick, you can get this right. I'm already sending you a package. You might as well throw this one in it. All right, so we don't have a winner because nobody picked Close to the Edge. So we're going to have to do another one. So Brad will use your other one that you were going to do. Royce, you were a little late, but you were using deductive logic. You picked the only album that hadn't been written already. All right, so go ahead with our backup question here.
Okay, let's see. What was it?
Which stadium in the U.S.?
Yeah, let me.
Which stadium in the U.S.?
Yeah, which venue in the U.S. did Yes set the record for playing the most times in the 70s?
Which venue in the U.S. did Yes set the record for playing the most times in the 1970s?
Well, let's say which venue. It's
yeah,
because it's not necessarily a stadium. So it's venue. Yeah.
Venue. Okay. Haven't seen the right answer yet.
Not yet. That's it. Jerry C. got it. Madison Square Garden.
There you go, Jerry. Madison Square Garden. Jerry C. Congratulations, Jerry.
Good job.
What's the number? Did it say what the number was?
No, it didn't say what the number
so
was.
Madison Square Garden, great answer. Cranberry sauce, just a little late. Usually at Thanksgiving, I have that problem as well. So
my backyard. No,
my backyard.
I wish.
Yeah, you wish, right? Okay, so Jerry C., if you would send me an email to david@safeandsoundtexas.com, fully spelled out, david@safeandsoundtexas.com, with your address, I will ship you this fragile OG George Buros master. Hope you don't have it. Even if you do, you want it. So thanks.
Good job.
Very much. Yeah. So this has been a lot of fun, Scott. I appreciate not feeling well and coming on anyway. Good sport. And it's been a great time to reflect on this band and all that they've done. And I think, now that we can say here at the end, it's kind of like, hey, some of these newer pressings really matter. Right, Scott?
Yeah. I'm as soon as I get off, I'm going to go search for that Bellman cut.
Yeah.
I need one.
Yeah. No, it's great. So, we're not here to, blow the horn of everything that's expensive. We're trying to just tell you the truth of what we hear. And as Scott said, your system, your ears, never, you might get different results. But I certainly can tell you that, on balance, we certainly realize that it isn't always the amount of money you spend. It's the amount of effort that's put in the product that you get from a quality standpoint. And that's where it matters. So, for those of you who are looking for a good pressing of this, it's not like we're coming back and saying, go find a $175 one step, or go find an acoustic or whatever. you can definitely do well with the ones that have been redone by the loving hands of these mastering engineers, who now have a name, and now you know why they have the name, because they've got the cred, right?
Yep.
And they are not delivering the crud, they're delivering the cred. Now, talking about that mobile fidelity close to the edge and crud, but no, it's unfortunate because I have a ton of mobile fidelities in that era, and that is certainly the least happy. So I don't know what happened there. What are you doing? One step time?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Can you still hear us, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Something happened with
Something
the
happened
camera
with
there.
it happened to me the other day too.
Oh.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'll just say one thing. I think to me, one of the things that's interesting kind of coming out of this is the fact that these new pressings, these new masters from, sort of modern mastering engineers, if you will, despite the fact that they're using these old tapes, everybody talks about a lot about, well, how old are the tapes and what's the condition and that. The fact that they can get out of it, what they're getting out of it now is amazing to me, and really gives me a lot of hope for the Atlantic 75s, because, they're going back to these tapes, who knows, maybe one final time, and maybe doing a definitive pressing of these.
Right.
I'm going to be just really curious to see how all of these turn out, and see if they, if they're able to beat some of these that are really, really, really good. I mean, I think the bar is pretty high here.
Yeah. The Yes album is coming first. Is that right?
I think so.
After 90125.
Yeah, 90125
is Friday. It's
yeah.
Friday.
I think Yes album is like November or something like that. Chad said in one of his videos.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh.
Yeah. They're later. But
I know
the
Fragile
90125
wasn't even on the list till next year, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait on that to do another shootout on those.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we need to say too, is that all three of us have committed, when those come out, we're going to redo this. We are going to revisit
against our winners. Yeah.
Right? We we'll have round 2, and we'll do this again.
This is how it goes south. Speaking of sports, the man, the legend, Scott Wilson, never to be with Muhammad Ali in the ring. Well, everybody, it's been great. We have had about 45 people all throughout. I thank you very much, and hope you've enjoyed this, and stay tuned for more on the Pressing Matters with Scott Wilson and myself, David Bianco, and my wingman, Brad, who is always here for these live shootouts. So you all take care of yourselves. Have a great week. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.